So welcome. We're glad that you're here as a part of the new Phoenix Fusion Metro Phoenix collaboration effort. This is a Meet Your Pastor. And our idea is to have some question and answers with those pastors serving in our congregations in the area of the Metro Phoenix. So I'm going to go ahead and have them each introduce themselves. If through your introduction you could share your name, are you a native Arizonan? And if not, where are you from? The name of your congregation, the location of your congregation. So with that, we're not looking to say, are you in Phoenix or Paradise Valley, but general cross street so people can place it. And then how long you've served the congregation. So again, your name, native Arizonan, name of congregation, location, and how long have you served? And Karn, we will go ahead and start with you.
Why, hello everyone. I am Karn Carroll, and no, I am not native Arizonan. I was actually born in California, but grew up in Minnesota, which you'll hear from the accent from time to time. I serve our Saviors at 12th Street in Glendale, and I have been here almost 9 years now.
Thank you. And Pastor Dan.
I'm Pastor Dan Hager, and I have been here at All Saints Lutheran Church here at near 7th Street, north of Thunderbird for 4 years. I was born in California like Karn and grew up in Nebraska and South Dakota.
Thank you. Pastor Sarah, number 2.
Hi, I'm Sarah Isakson, and I am not a native Arizonan. I was born in Haverhill, Massachusetts, 70 years ago. Ooh, and I'm serving Faith LaFay as an interim pastor. The location is 7th Street and Camelback, and I've been here 2 months and 2 weeks. 2 months and 2 weeks.
Thank you. Pastor Brent.
Hello, I'm Pastor Brent Maxwell. I am a native Arizonan. I serve at Gloria Day Lutheran Church, which is in Paradise Valley, but we're actually 36th Street and Stanford, just south of Lincoln. Let's see, I've been serving here 13 years now, I believe.
Yeah. Thank you. Pastor Deb.
I'm Pastor Deb Slifer. I'm not from Arizona. Also, I'm New Jersey. Stayed there until I graduated from college. Spent as many years, though, in California, and that's where I was ordained. I'm currently serving at Mount of Olives Lutheran, which is on Thomas Road, 35th Street and Thomas Road in Phoenix. And I'm serving as interim pastor there.
Thank you. And Pastor Sarah, number 1.
I'm Pastor Sarah Stadler. I serve Grace Lutheran Church. We're on 3rd Street and Moreland. Moreland is between McDowell and Roosevelt. I am not a native Arizonan. I was born in northwestern North Dakota, and then spent most of my growing up years in Minnesota and moved here to Arizona, most recently from Iowa. I've been here at Grace for 9.5 years.
Thank you. And Pastor Kerry.
Hello, I'm Pastor Kerry, and I have the privilege of serving St. Andrew Lutheran Church, which is off of the 17 in Cactus. I have been there for 2 months, approximately 2 months. I moved here from Minnesota, and I'm a native Minnesotan.
Thank you. And Pastor Kristen.
I'm Kristen Rice. I grew up in Southern Oregon, and I serve All Saints Lutheran Church on 7th Street, south of Greenway, and I have been there for 3 years.
Thank you. All right, did we get everybody? Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump into some of the general questions, and Karn, you get to go, Pastor Karn, you get to go again first. And so I'm going to ask you, when did you say yes to your call to be a pastor?
So I was actually invited into pastoral ministry when I was in 9th grade in confirmation. And then I sat and thought about it through high school and went, really, whatever. And then finally it was in college. I had to make the choice between law school or seminary. And God made it pretty clear that seminary was the route. So that's when I said yes.
Thank you. Pastor Dan, your question is, could you share a blooper that's occurred during a service?
In my first call, we had a very hot church, no air conditioning, in Michigan. And I had all my robes on, and I was standing at the pulpit like a good pastor. And it was a homemade pulpit with a shelf that you could put your Bible on. And I was reaching for my Bible, and an altar guild member politely had put a glass of water there without telling me. And so I knocked water over, and I was then immediately wet from the crotch down. So I had to preach till I was dry. So.
Thank you. Pastor Sarah Isakson, can you share with us when you said yes to your call to be a pastor?
So the first time was 25 years before I actually made the real choice. I was in England going to a Methodist study group to prepare for seminary. And that was 1977. And then fast forward 20 some years, and I served on an internship committee at Spanish Trail Lutheran, and this is our third intern, and I was called because the harvest is ready and the workers are few, and I thought that I could somehow make the change the church from the inside was my goal in life as a pastor. But I really didn't care about being a pastor as much as I cared about learning more about Luther and Lutheranism and grace. And so that was it. It was 1995 or 96 on Father's Day graduation, when they preached that great sermon about the harvest is ready and the workers are few. That was the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. Thanks.
Thank you. Pastor Brent, what were you doing when someone said, can a pastor do that?
What was I doing when a pastor said, can a pastor do that?
Not when a pastor said that, when somebody else said, can a pastor do
when
that?
Somebody else said that. When somebody else said that. When I first got here to Gloria Day, we had a good relationship with Prince of Peace. And they had a wonderful gym, like kind of a big fellowship hall that had a full-size basketball court. And so I started kind of a weekly basketball open gym. And it brought kids from all around Arcadia and Phoenix. At first, kids from both churches, but then eventually their friends, and even some kids from the neighborhood. And I remember one night playing, and we kind of got kind of a close game, and we were playing hard, and I got a steal and hit a game-winning shot. And the kid that was playing against me didn't realize that I was the pastor. And so a bunch of the kids from the church got all excited and congratulated me. And I remember the kid turning around and saying, "Wait, he's a pastor? He's playing with us? And can a pastor play like this?" And I kind of chuckled. I guess they just thought I was some old guy who had wandered in to play basketball with them. But yeah, I remember the young guys always saying, whoa, you're a pastor who set all this up and you play with us? Can a pastor do that?
Thank you. Pastor Deb, have you always been a Lutheran?
Yes. I'm a cradle Lutheran. I laugh a little only because I was raised in the Slovak Lutheran Church. So it's part of the LCA, then the ELCA, but it is very different.
How is it different?
Very patriarchal. A lot of the practices I was raised with would have excluded me from doing much within the Slovak Lutheran Church. I know that's not true now or in the later years, but it was very high church. So I had when I got to seminary and went to it, which is pretty high, a seminary service, I thought, what is this? I don't know this. It just was very high church, and that's what I had in my brain. It was this high church thing, and got to seminary and learned there's different types of worship, and I loved it.
Thank you. Pastor Sarah Stadler, what would be your biggest dream or hope for our Phoenix Fusion collaboration?
My biggest dream or hope for our Phoenix Fusion collaboration would probably have to do with the future of the church and us living into the future of the church together, which of course we don't know what the future will be, but I'm pretty sure that the future is going to look different than the past. And so my biggest hope would be that we would be open to wherever the Spirit guides us, and to not put like strictures on ourselves or our imaginations about how we can be church together.
Thank you. Pastor Kerry, can you share with us a blooper that has occurred during a service that you've held?
I was in my first call, and I think it might have even been my first Ash Wednesday service with the congregation. And my colleague and I were tracing the ashes on our forehead, and the next thing I know, I had ashes everywhere, all over my face, all over my stole, all over my nose. And so I had to finish the service kind of, I could say, like with a dog nose, because my nose was pretty black with all the ashes that were there. And so that's one of the funniest bloopers that I still kind of chuckle with. And my colleague, whenever we chat, we always bring that up. It's just kind of a funny thing that happened that first Ash Wednesday that we were together.
A memorable moment. All right. And Pastor Kristen, can you share with us what books you're reading right now for pleasure and inspiration?
Well, I know that many of our colleagues have already dove into this book, but I'm just now getting into Canoeing the Mountains by Todd Bolsinger, because he's now offering a free online course about canoeing the Covocalypse, which is this crazy time that we're all in right now. So I'm kind of trying to catch up on that pre-reading, so I can also kind of think about how to apply some of those leadership and community building concepts to this current challenge. And if you don't know the premise of the book, it's kind of lessons on leadership and team building based on what can be learned from the journey of Lewis and Clark as they traveled into literally uncharted territory, traveled off the map together.
Excellent. So are you reading anything just for fun these days?
I just finished last week with homeschooling my second grader and kindergartner for the last couple of months. So there hasn't been a lot of time for my own personal reading, but hopefully this summer I'll be able to get some of that in.
Excellent. Well, there's some good books for first and second graders, so maybe reading with them, right?
Yeah, we've done some Harry Potter lately. That's been fun.
Excellent. All right, so Pastor Karn, can you share with us what you were doing when someone said, "Can a pastor do that?"
Drinking. I think I was somewhere and I ordered a glass of wine, and they looked over and they're like, "Wait, you're a pastor, aren't you? Pastors don't drink." And I'm like, "We don't." Oh, okay. That's it.
Thank you. All right, and Pastor Dan, the same question to you. What were you doing when someone said, can a pastor do that?
It wasn't quite that question, but it comes pretty close. My wife is a big fan of the guitar god, Michael Schenker. And so we went to a small venue in Boulder, and she worked her way up to the front right against the stage. And so the only way I could keep her from getting jostled around was to stand right behind her, which meant I had to spend the whole time with a drunk guy trying to talk to me during this show. And so I mentioned who I was and that I was a pastor. And during the middle of this heavy metal concert, he looked at me and said, "You're kind of conservative, aren't you?" So evidently he had more expectations for a pastor than I did. So.
Thank you. Pastor Sarah Isakson, what would be your biggest dream or hope for our Phoenix Fusion collaboration?
I would, I'd like to see us collaborate with other of our communion partners. Sorry about that, I got my hand in front of that. I would like to see us work with the Episcopalians, the Lutherans, Presbyterians, UCC, in our efforts to train up more lay leaders and collaborate instead of doing everything in a silo. I'd like to see us collaborate that way in this visioning process to see how we can be better stewards of all of our buildings and all of the need that surrounds us, especially for homelessness. Interfaith participation rather than competition.
Thank you. Pastor Brent, on your day off, what do you like to do, or how do you relax or unwind on a Sunday afternoon?
Probably I've got two things that I do. If it's a Sunday afternoon, my wife and I are actually really big fantasy football players. And so if it's a Sunday afternoon, we're probably watching football, and then we've got our laptops up, and we're probably doing a fair amount of texting back and forth, some trash talking with friends and family who are in a fantasy football league with us. If it's not a Sunday afternoon, I'm out on the hiking trails with my wife and maybe one of my daughters or my dog. I'd love to hike.
Thank you. Pastor Deb, what books are you reading right now for fun and or for inspiration?
Oh, John Meacham, and not just one, because I haven't quite finished The Soul of America, which is an older, I think a year ago book, which I love that, and that throughout his living. And he's such a faithful historian, and he has a new book out now. So they're pleasurable to read and faith-filled.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you to rename them because you're freezing up a little bit, and I don't know, and so the audio didn't click for me.
John Meacham is the author.
Okay.
The first book I picked up was The Soul of America, and Hope and Glory, I believe, is the name of the newest book. And then there's one in between those two on history, on country music in America, which he wrote with Tim McGraw.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Pastor Sarah Stadler, can you share what's been a memorable moment in your current call?
I've had lots of memorable moments. I would say probably the first one that comes to mind is from the first week that I was at Grace. I had previously served a congregation in a small town in northeastern Iowa. that was very traditional Lutheran, and everything in this congregation was like very neat and clean. There was no chaos. Things were well ordered. It's a congregation from a German heritage. And the first week that I was at Grace, I had stepped into this call where there just is a lot of chaos all the time. And I went outside. Oh, it must have been my second week. I went outside on a Wednesday evening. We have a program that happens on Wednesday evenings where folks from the community come in and we have a meal and we have Bible study. It's called Glow Grace Lutheran on Wednesdays. Most of the people who participate in that program are experiencing homelessness. That was going on inside. And then I went outside because I knew that there was like a group like renting the courtyard, and there was going to be some sort of event in the sanctuary and the courtyard, and I was kind of bouncing between both of them. And it happened to be, I started my call the very end of November, beginning of December, and it happened to be a World AIDS Day event that was happening in our sanctuary. And I stepped out of the door in the moment when this drag show was going on in the courtyard. And like, so if you're not familiar with drag, it's like men wearing women's clothing or women wearing men's clothing. And it was like a runway sort of show in the middle of our like sacred space there. And I went back into the hall and I said to the folks who were like volunteering with our Glow program, did you know there's a drag show in the courtyard? And they're like, oh yeah.
Normal.
Like, is there a problem? Like,
No.
Fine.
I'm good.
Excellent.
It was
Thank
so great.
you.
I was like, I'm in the
Thank
right
you.
place.
So Pastor Kristen, on your day off, what do you like to do and how do you like to relax and unwind?
Oh, on my day off, well, as I mentioned before, I have 2 young children, so we tend to like outdoor recreational activities. We when we're able to, we like to go to the park and either hit or throw a ball around. We like to do some hiking. We like to do some swimming, depending on the season. They're both pretty involved in youth sports, so we do a lot of organized and disorganized sports when we have the opportunity. But we also just kind of like to take field trips and explore local attractions and have kind of create our own adventures. So we do a lot of that. These days it's all a little closer to home, but we're kind of making backyard adventures and doing a lot of swimming.
Excellent. Thank you. Pastor Kerry, I'm sorry I jumped over you before I went on. So can you share with us, when did you say yes to your call as a pastor?
Sure. It was probably after I graduated from college. I started serving a congregation in Red Wing, Minnesota, which is south of the cities. I was a youth director of youth and family ministry, and I kind of had a sense that I'd be working in the church, but I didn't really know what that was all going to look like. And a couple months after my call, I gave a sermon on Mother's Day, and that congregation and the 2 pastors that I worked with, they kept saying, we have to get you to seminary. I was like, you're silly. That's not going to happen. And they kept saying that. And I kept saying, you're silly. That's not going to happen. Well, 2 years into my ministry there, I ended up studying at Lutheran Seminary in St. Paul. So I kind of always knew that from high school on that I'd be doing something in ministry. I just didn't know that it was going to be ordained ministry. And I give a lot of thanks to my parents, my youth director when I was in high school, and then that congregation. All 3 of those folks and people and places just really helped me get my sense of call that was brewing from within, but also that sense of call from without.
Thank you. Pastor Karn, can you share with us what your biggest dream or hope for our Phoenix Fusion collaboration is?
You know, I think I can probably speak for all of us pastors right now, but we definitely don't see the mission that we're called to here in Metro Phoenix as at all competition, but rather we're all partners in this together. And so I would love for that to just really spread to everybody who's worshiping with us, all the members of our congregations, the attenders, anybody that we touch, that we are all on the same page, right? We're all here to fulfill the mission of Jesus Christ, sharing his love and grace in the world, and that we're doing this together, as church together, and sharing those resources and that energy and that passion together is my greatest hope for this.
Thank you. All right, Pastor Dan, what books are you reading right now for fun or for inspiration?
I have to admit that I hate sitting in a chair and turning pages. It seems too much like my day job. And so I'll confess up. I love podcasts. So one of my favorite ongoing podcasts is one analyzing American politics, and that's 538. It's spelled out 538. And it's a really interesting podcast, gives a good slice of what's going on in America and looking at it from a data point of view. On the more artistic side, AMC just had a series on television, a short-lived series, I think 10 episodes, called Dispatches from Elsewhere. And it was beautifully done, very artistic, very thoughtful. And my brother is a filmmaker himself. And so my brother and sister and I have been having Zoom meetings talking about what's going on in the show. And if you want to watch a TV show that's better than most of the books you've read, watch Dispatches from Elsewhere.
Excellent, thank you. So Pastor Sarah Isakson, have you always been a Lutheran?
No, I've been a member of 5 different denominations. I was raised congregational before it was UCC in a 250-year-old congregation in Andover, Massachusetts. And then I went to a Quaker college, so I embraced the Quaker tradition there. Then I went to Kuwait, and I was sort of in a house fellowship with disciples and Assembly of God and Mennonites and Reformed Church Lutherans, and I joined the Reformed Church mission there. And then after that, I went back to England, and I was a member of a Methodist and Episcopal Church, or Church of England, for 7 years. And then I went back to Kuwait, and after Kuwait, I went back to Massachusetts, and my parents were Episcopalian at that time. And then when I moved to Amherst, I became a Lutheran with John Stendhal as a campus pastor at UMass Amherst. And since then, I've been mostly Lutheran. I'm
I love that you have a
Lutheran.
clarifier.
Yeah, ELCA Lutheran by choice.
There you go. Thank you. Pastor Deb, on your day off, what do you like to do, or how do you relax or unwind on a Sunday afternoon?
I usually take a nap Sunday afternoon if I can. But what I like to do outside of the church, my number one thing is square dancing. And yeah, so either square dancing or spending time with other friends, outside friends.
Awesome. Thank you. Pastor Sarah Stadler, when did you say yes to your call to be a pastor?
When I was 15 years old, in my confirmation essay, I wrote specifically that I'd never be a leader in organized religion, because I believed that organized religion was not necessary in the world. And though I was very active in the church, so when I was in college and I was majoring in religion, because I've always been fascinated by religion, kind of from an anthropological view, as well as a theological one. I felt called to ordain ministry when I was, I must have been 21. And it was like the choice was taken out of my hands, and God was like, this is what you're going to do. Even though I was really struggling with the church then and now, although I love Grace. But yeah, I said, really, do I have to? At like 21.
All right. Thank you. Pastor Kerry, what were you doing when someone said, can a pastor do that?
I lived in Western North Dakota in Minot, and I was a campus pastor, and I served a small congregation also in Surrey, North Dakota, which is 7 miles to the east of Minot. And in Surrey, there's not much in Surrey. It's a town of less than 1,000 people. It kind of gets swallowed up by Minot, and but there's one kind of restaurant bar in the community. And this congregation was kind of doing some transformation work and trying to figure out who they were. And so I invited one of our leaders to go have lunch at the restaurant / bar in town. And their eyes just went really, really big. Like, really? We can go and do that? Like, yeah, I can go and do that. You can go and do that. And it's all good. It's all good. So, and maybe the other thing is I've done some funny things in sermons too. Like I dressed up as a janitor on Palm Sunday, and people were just like, "You can do that in a sermon, in a worship service?" I'm like, "Yep, it's okay to do that. It's okay to be a little bit creative."
Excellent. Thank you. Pastor Kristen, what has been a memorable moment in your current call?
There have been so many memorable moments in my current call, but I think that one of the ones that I really treasure was from the service that we held when I transitioned from being an interim to my current role as the pastor for intergenerational ministry. And because I'm serving under the formula of agreement as a Presbyterian, we didn't have an installation per se, but we had a rite of invitation to extended service, as it was called. But it had the marks of an installation service. And what I loved about that was that it really kind of set the tone for the kind of ministry that I wanted to do, in that all the different age groups and generations of the congregation were participants in that service. And so we had a combined choir that included children as well as adults. We had children and youth that presented a sort of a dramatic interpretation of the scripture from Isaiah. And I remember, initially feeling a little bit like, I don't know that I need all this pomp and circumstance, and I certainly don't want the focus to be on me, and I don't know if this is really necessary. But I distinctly remember standing in the robe room and kind of getting dressed up for this event, and two little girls kind of came running over and paused in the doorway and were just kind of looking at me like this, and I thought, well, that's why this is important. For them to see, and not only for them to see, but for them to participate, and know that the path of their faith has broad opportunities within it. So that was a really special time for me, bringing together multiple generations, at least 2 denominations, friends old and new, and a lot of the values that are important to me in ministry.
Thank you. Well, unbelievably, we've already reached our 30 minutes of time, and I could go on and listen to all of you, because the stories that you're sharing help us understand who you are in the places that you serve. And it's good to hear your stories of faith-based, those that are a little bit on the funny side. But thank you for your time, so that we can learn a little bit more about you, hopes and dreams, past and present, But thank you most for your time today.